Ben kendimi yaşıyorum sanmıyorum ki. Bizim adam Ay'a gidiyor, biz 9 yıl oturuyoruz. Elektrik evimizin dibinden geçiyor. Kuru koçu alıp geleceğiniz. Kuru koçu obaya atıp geleceğiniz.
With our program, we continue to touch upon peoples whose cultural and identity values have been sought to be erased and who have been pushed into the forgotten pages of history. In this episode, we will discuss a people who were once a kingdom caught between two countries' borders, but whose cultural and historical values are no longer given much prominence and who are today reduced mostly to jokes. We will talk about the Laz people, who were once dominant over the waters of the Black Sea and are now squeezed between northern Turkey and southern Georgia. It is estimated that the Laz people, living in the harsh and mountainous geography of the Black Sea in northern Turkey and southern Georgia, have a population of around 1 million today. Undoubtedly, this figure reflects the present day. In earlier periods of history, considering the kingdom they possessed, it is understood that the Laz population was much higher than this. Because they were a people who were intended to be left without status, studying the history of the Laz and accessing information about them is quite difficult, which made it hard for them to create their own sources. However, the isolation created by living in mountainous areas has also helped them preserve many of their riches to this day. The first known written source about the Laz dates back to the 8th century BCE and comes from Eurasian records. This source mentions the kingdom of Colchis, the Laz kingdom. Stretching from present-day western Georgia to the Kora River, the kingdom of Colchis first came under the protection of the Byzantine Empire and later, with its transition to regional autonomy, was recognized by the Byzantines. Following the status they gained, the Laz founded the kingdom of Lazica in the lands of Colchis. Although it is thought that the kingdom came under Byzantine rule, the kingdom of Lazica actually had an independent form of governance. As a continuation of the kingdom of Colchis, the kingdom of Lazica revolted against the Puncheons in the 1st century. This revolt helped them grow stronger. They continued to strengthen in the 3rd century and expanded their borders from the Caucasus to Trabzon in the 5th century. These expanding borders and increasing power enabled them to settle in the region between the Kora River and the Black Sea coast. The kingdom of Lazica caused disputes between the powerful civilizations of the time, the Persian and Byzantine empires, because both empires wanted to incorporate Lazica into their domains. In the face of invasion attempts by both sides, the Laz sometimes sought help from the Persians and sometimes from the Byzantines to protect themselves. However, their efforts to survive did not last long. By the 8th century, the kingdom of Lazica met its undesired end. The empire that destroyed Lazica was Byzantium. While the Laz remained under Byzantine rule, Queen Tamar of the Georgians, who maintained her independence, took Lazica and all of Pontus from the Byzantines and established the Empire of Trebizond. Although the kingdom was worn down from time to time due to Byzantine conflicts, it managed to survive until the 15th century. In 1461, it became a Sanjak attached to the Ottoman Empire. In addition, during Ottoman integration efforts, the Chepni Turks were also settled in the Pontus and Lazica regions. Yavuz Sultan Selim worked to Islamize the Laz. By the 17th century, it was observed that almost all Laz had been Islamized. In research on the Laz, it is also possible to encounter views that the Laz are a branch of the Georgians. The similarity of the Laz language to Georgian contributes to this view. However, the Laz define themselves as a separate ethnicity. They believe this is said because of the Georgianization policies carried out in Georgia. While the Laz who remained in Georgia were subjected to Georgianization policies, the Laz living in Turkey were exposed to Turkification policies. For a period in Soviet Russia, the Laz even received education in their mother tongue. Later, however, the Laz were recorded as Georgians in population registers, and thus the Laz identity was ignored. In Turkey, the Laz were not seen as a separate ethnicity but as a regional group of Turks. Unfortunately, even today there are Laz who believe this. In other words, there are Laz who truly consider themselves Turkish. In addition to identity, the Laz have also been caught in the grip of cultural assimilation. This assimilation has been especially effective on the language, so much so that Laz has been included by UNESCO among the endangered languages. It is estimated that about 250,000 people in the world currently speak Laz. The only known attempt at autonomy by the Laz began under the leadership of Faik Effendi from Hopa. He tried to create a Laz alphabet and published a Laz language textbook called Nane Nane. He also wrote a book in Laz, but in 1910, Sultan Abdulhamid II imprisoned Faik Effendi, burned his works before his eyes, and exiled his family. After being released from prison, Ali Faik Effendi continued his work, but in 1915 he was killed by his enemies. Although he died before completing the Laz alphabet, another Laz intellectual, Iskender Çatasi, completed it in 1920. Apart from these weak rising voices, we do not encounter a Laz uprising. With the development of the nation-state in Turkey, the Laz also began to be among the forgotten peoples. Turkification efforts were applied to the Laz, as to other ethnicities in Turkey. Settlement policies, language bans, and compulsory Turkish education were also imposed on the Laz. However, no strong resistance emerged. Although they did not rise in rebellion, the number of Laz who did not give up defining themselves as Laz is not small. Perhaps what they lacked was a pioneer, a leader. Today, the Laz, who are increasingly ignored, have a language that many people in Turkey think is merely a dialect of Turkish. In short, a people who have historically been targeted for erasure and left without status are today once again facing the danger of extinction.